The wind over Vireland's high plains cut like glass. It carried the smell of burned stone and the faint metallic tang of lightning that never quite left the air. Ilia's Rain kept his hood low as he walked along the ridge path, his boots sinking into powder-fine dust. The sun was a copper disk behind thick clouds, and the world below glowed red as if it were bleeding. Beside him walked Luro, her tall, graceful form moving without sound. She wore the mask as always, a smooth black surface covering her entire face, featureless except for two narrow slits for eyes. Thin silver lines ran down from those slits like tears frozen mid-fall. Ilias had known her for almost a year now, long enough to get used to the mask, but never long enough to stop wondering. They met in the aftermath of the Skarn raids, when Ilias had been repairing a shattered comms relay in the hills, and she had appeared out of the fog, unarmed, shivering, and nearly dead from hunger. He'd taken her in, shared what little rations he had, and taught her how to fix the simpler machinery the frontier towns relied on. She never removed the mask. Not to eat, she would turn away and tilt it back only slightly. Not to sleep, she claimed she didn't need to, not once. And now, as the two of them made their way toward Kithra Station, the air crackled with the unease between them. "You know," Ilias said, breaking the silence, "I've patched power conduits in the dark, rewired a Skarn jammer while bullets were flying, and even fixed that damn water purifier in Morda after it exploded. But the one mystery I still can't solve is me," Luro finished softly. Her voice was always quiet, but the mask gave it a strange, resonant quality, like she was speaking from a cave. Ilias glanced at her. "Yeah, you and that mask." For a few steps, the only sound was the whisper of the wind and the crunch of his boots in the dust. Finally, she stopped walking. He stopped too. Her head tilted, the black mask catching the weak sunlight. "If I told you why," she said, "you'd stop protecting me." The words hit harder than the wind. "What's that supposed to mean?" Ilias asked. Her gaze, or at least the slits that hid it, didn't waver. "Some truths make people run, others make them dangerous. I can't risk either." Ilias folded his arms. "I've seen dangerous. You've been traveling with me for months, scavengers, storms, Skarn patrols. You think there's something I can't handle." "I think," she said, "that if you knew you might decide I'm not worth the risk." Before he could answer, a deep rumble rolled through the ground beneath their feet. It wasn't thunder, it was too steady, too mechanical. Ilias turned toward the west, scanning the horizon. Through the copper haze, he saw them, dark shapes moving in formation, kicking up trails of dust. Skarn patrol drones, low and fast. And in the center of the formation, a towering figure on a grav sled, armor gleaming like wet obsidian. The hunter. Ilias felt his stomach knot. Skarn hunters were relentless, trackers trained to lock onto a target's scent, voice, heat signature, anything. And they didn't travel this far into the high plains unless they were after someone specific. "They're coming," Luro said. No fear in her voice, just certainty. "Yeah," Ilias muttered, "and I think I know who they're after. They'll reach us in minutes." Ilias scanned the jagged ridges ahead. "We can make it to the comms bunker if we move now." "They'll still find us," she said. "They always find me." Ilias grabbed her wrist. "Then we make them regret it." The rumble grew louder, vibrating through his boots. The hunter's sled cut through the haze, its dark rider raising a long weapon that shimmered with green energy. Ilias reached for the coilgun slung across his back. And then Luro's voice came again, quiet and steady through the rising storm of sound. "If they see my face, Ilias, they won't kill me. They'll take me alive, and you won't be able to stop them." The hunter's visor locked onto them. The first shot screamed through the air. The green blast struck the ridge behind them, shattering rock into a spray of molten fragments. The shockwave slammed into Ilias' back and sent him staggering forward. "Move," he shouted, yanking Luro toward the nearest slope. They ran, boots slipping in the fine dust, lungs burning in the thin air. The hunter's sled roared closer, the sound like an angry swarm of wasps inside an echo chamber. The Skarn drones fanned out, their optical lenses glowing a cold blue. Ilias knew the Skarn tactic. The drones would herd them, cutting off every escape until they were trapped. Then the hunter would close in for the capture. "Not today." He veered left toward a jagged ravine. "Down here," he barked. Luro followed without hesitation, her long strides keeping pace despite the uneven terrain. Elias risked a glance back. The hunter had seen their move and angled the sled to intercept. The first drone swooped low, a needle-thin dart launcher swiveling toward them. Elias dropped to one knee mid-run, snapped up the coil gun, and fired. The crack of the shot echoed through the canyon as the drone exploded into a burst of sparks and shredded metal. 6 left, he muttered. The ravine narrowed ahead, its walls closing in until they were only a few meters apart. Elias slid down a slope of loose rock, boots scraping, then dropped the last meter into the shadowed channel below. Luro landed beside him without a sound. The air down here was cooler, the copper haze above dimmed to a faint glow. But the sound of the sled was still there, louder now, closer. "They're following us in," Luro said. "Good," Elias replied, slapping a palm-sized device onto the ravine wall. He twisted the dial, and the device's surface lit up with a faint blue pulse. "Let's see how they like a magnetic choke." He set 2 more as they ran, creating a kill zone. The first drone entered the ravine, and the device's pulse flared. The drone convulsed midair, its systems frying in a shower of sparks before crashing into the rocks. The sled wasn't so easily stopped. The hunter steered it low, skimming over the ravine floor, weapon raised. The armor gleamed, and Elias caught sight of the creature beneath, tall, scaled, with eyes like black mirrors. A blast from the weapon carved a glowing scar in the wall just behind them. Heat seared Elias' neck. He ducked behind a boulder, dragging Luro down with him. "You ever plan to tell me why they want you alive?" Her masked head turned toward him. "Would it change what you're doing?" "Maybe," he said honestly. "Depends on the reason." The hunter's voice boomed from a speaker, echoing off the stone. "Turn her over, human. Walk away and you live." Elias grinned without humor. "That's tempting." "They won't stop," Luro said. "Not while I'm breathing." "Then we make sure they're not breathing either." Before she could reply, the hunter's sled dropped lower, and in one smooth motion the alien warrior leaped off, landing heavily on the ravine floor. The sled hovered idly behind him, weapon systems tracking. Elias knew this wasn't good. Skarn hunters were bad enough in armor on foot. They were faster, stronger, and built for close combat. The hunter stalked forward, weapon in one hand, a hooked blade in the other. Last chance. Elias' grip tightened on the coil gun. "You want her, you'll have to." The hunter moved, too fast. In a heartbeat, he was on them. Elias fired once, twice, the shots sparking harmlessly off the hunter's armor. A heavy blow smashed into his chest, sending him sprawling into the dirt. His vision went white for a second. Through the haze, he saw Luro step forward. "Luro, no," he gasped. But she didn't attack. Instead, her hands went to the sides of the mask. Elias' stomach dropped. The hunter froze, the blade pausing mid-swing. "You know what I am," Luro said quietly. The hunter's voice was low and reverent. "Confirmed." Elias saw his chance, but before he could move, the hunter activated a beacon on his wrist. A high-pitched signal pulsed through the ravine. And in the distance, far beyond the copper haze, Elias heard it, a deeper roar. Engines, many of them. More were coming. The roar grew louder, a rolling thunder of grav engines echoing through the ravine. Elias scrambled to his feet, chest aching where the hunter's blow had landed. His coil gun felt suddenly too light, too useless. "Luro, what the hell did you just do?" he snapped. "I didn't call them," she said, voice flat behind the mask. "He did." The hunter didn't move, just stood there with the blade lowered, eyes locked on her mask. "Primary target acquired. Stand down, human." Elias spat dust. "Not happening." Above them, the copper haze trembled as the new arrivals drew closer. Elias knew that sound, troop skiffs. At least 3, maybe 4. Each one could carry a dozen Skarn soldiers. A dozen was already too many. "Think we can outrun them?" he asked. "No," Luro said simply. "Then we improvise." The hunter took one slow step forward. "Your resistance is unnecessary. She is not what you think." "I don't care what she is," Elias said, raising his coil gun. "I just know you're not taking her." The hunter tilted his head slightly, as if studying an insect. Then he lunged. Elias dove sideways, rolled, and came up firing. The shots ricocheted off the armor, but they bought him seconds. Enough to pull a small silver sphere from his belt pouch and slam it against the ground. A blinding flash exploded, the ravine walls flaring white. The hunter roared, stumbling back, visor flaring as the overload fried his optics. Luro grabbed Ilias' arm. "This way," she said, pulling him toward a narrow fissure in the rock. They squeezed inside just as the first Skarn skiff swept overhead, their searchlights slicing through the copper mist. Shouts in guttural Skarn language echoed above. The fissure wound deeper into the earth, the air cooling with each step. Ilias could still hear the engines outside, feel the vibrations through the stone. When they finally stopped to catch their breath, Ilias turned to her. "All right, enough. I've patched you up, fought beside you, nearly died for you. Now you tell me why they want you alive." She stood in the half-light, her mask unreadable. "Because if they kill me, they lose the war. If they capture me, they win it." Ilias stared. "And what exactly are you?" Her voice was barely above a whisper. "A weapon they built and couldn't control." Ilias let that sink in. "Built as in?" "Yes," she said. "I wasn't born, I was made, engineered." He tried to read her stance, the tilt of her head. She wasn't trembling, wasn't pleading, just stating fact. "And the mask?" he asked. "It hides what I am from their sensors. Without it, they can track me anywhere. And," she hesitated, "it hides my face from you." Before Ilias could press, a deep grinding sound echoed down the fissure. Metal on stone. "Please tell me that's not," Ilias began. "It is," she said. Something huge was forcing its way into the fissure behind them, segmented metal limbs scraping rock, a central red optic glowing in the dark. A Skarn crawler drone, built for tight spaces, with a plasma cutter whirring at the front. Ilias' heart pounded. "How many toys do they have?" "Enough to find me," Luro said. The crawler surged forward, sparks flying as its cutter bit into the rock. The heat rolled toward them in shimmering waves. Ilias glanced at the winding tunnel ahead. "We can't outrun that." "Then we stop it here," she said. He gave a short, humorless laugh. "You got a plan." "Yes," she said, "but you won't like it." The crawler's cutter screamed, the heat growing unbearable. Luro reached for her mask. The plasma cutter screamed closer, sparks showering the fissure walls. The air shimmered with heat, the smell of scorched stone stinging Ilias' nose. Luro's fingers rested on the sides of her mask. "When you see, you can't unsee." Ilias grit his teeth. "Just do it." The mask hissed as its seals disengaged. For a moment it clung to her face, then it slid free. Ilias' breath caught. Her skin wasn't skin at all. It was a lattice of living metal, shifting and flowing in patterns that seemed both mechanical and alive. Beneath it, pulses of pale blue light ran like veins. Her eyes were the worst, not eyes at all, but twin spheres of liquid silver, reflecting everything in perfect clarity. Even the crawler paused, its cutter stalling for a heartbeat as its sensors recalibrated. Ilias took an involuntary step back. Something deep in his instincts told him he was looking at something not entirely safe. Luro's gaze locked on the crawler. The light beneath her metallic skin surged, flowing toward her hands. A faint hum filled the air, building fast. The crawler advanced again, cutter blazing, but before it could reach them, a wave of blue energy burst from Luro's palms, slamming into the machine. The metal screamed as its limbs twisted inward, folding like paper. Circuits burned out in bursts of light. The red optic flickered, then died. The carcass hit the ground with a crash that shook dust from the fissure's ceiling. Ilias stared. "You fried it." She replaced the mask in one smooth motion, the hum fading. "I told you, I'm a weapon." He shook his head slowly. "No, that wasn't just a weapon, that was." A deep voice echoed down the fissure. "Confirmed again." Ilias froze. The hunter stood at the far end, visor glowing faint green. The skiffs must have landed above, his armor still dripped with the copper dust from the surface. "You're persistent," Ilias muttered. "I had doubts," the hunter said. "Now I have none." Two more figures moved in behind him, Skarn soldiers, heavy rifles in hand. The fissure was too narrow for them to rush in at once, but the hunter didn't seem to mind. "You can't win," the hunter said, his gaze fixed on Luro. "Every moment you run, you delay the inevitable. Return with me and the human lives." Luro's voice was cold. "No." The hunter tilted his head. "Then he dies first." The two Skarn raised their rifles. Ilias' mind raced. The fissure was too tight for them to dodge, too long to retreat without being picked off. He glanced at Luro. "You got another one of those shockwave tricks?" he asked. "No," she said. "The mask was shielding me. Now they can track my energy directly. If I use it again, every scarn on this planet will know where we are." The hunter seemed to hear that and smiled, or at least made the scarn equivalent, barring rows of serrated teeth. "Your move, human." Elias dropped to one knee, pretending to set his coil gun on the ground. Then he yanked the magnetic choke device from his belt, slammed it against the fissure wall between them, and twisted the dial to max. The air snapped with static. The hunter's visor flickered, the soldiers' rifles spasmed in their hands, and for one crucial second their armor systems froze. "That'll do," Elias muttered. He fired the coil gun point blank. The nearest soldier went down in a shower of sparks, armor smoking. Luro moved instantly, grabbing Elias and pulling him deeper into the fissure before the hunter's systems could reboot. "Go," Elias shouted. Behind them, the hunter's roar shook the walls. They didn't stop running until the fissure opened onto the plains again. The copper haze had thickened, the sun now just a dull ember behind swirling clouds. Out here, the wind screamed without pause, dragging veils of dust across the red earth. Elias bent over, hands on his knees, lungs heaving. "Tell me, you've got some kind of plan." "Yes," Luro said. "We leave Vireland." He gave a short laugh. "You got a ship hidden somewhere I don't know about." "No, but there is one in the ruins of Kelthar Outpost, 200 kilometers east." Elias stared at her. "That's at least 3 days on foot." "2 if we move now." "And what about the army of Skarn that just got your location beamed into their teeth?" She didn't answer right away. "They'll come from every direction. The only safe path is through the glass wastes." Elias groaned. "That's not a safe path, that's suicide." The glass wastes weren't just a desert. They were a graveyard of crystal formations so sharp they could cut through boots, slicing flesh to ribbons. Storms there were electric, boiling the air with static so strong it cooked anything without proper shielding. Luro simply said, "It's the one place they won't follow." Elias straightened, "Because it's deadly." "Yes." He looked back toward the fissure. The sound of grav engines was faint but growing. "Fine, glass wastes it is, but you're explaining what exactly you did back there." They moved fast, cutting across ridges and dry gullies, keeping low. Luro's long strides barely slowed, and Elias found himself half jogging to match her pace. After an hour, the engines were closer, too close. "We can't outrun skiffs," Elias said. "Then we'll hide." She led him into a canyon where the walls glittered faintly. Elias realized the rock here wasn't rock at all. It was fused glass, smooth to the touch and cold despite the heat in the air. She knelt and placed her palm against the wall. Blue light rippled from her hand, vanishing into the glass. For a second, the wall seemed to breathe, then a section slid aside, revealing a narrow tunnel. Elias blinked. "Secret base." "Old relay chamber," she said, "built when this planet was still under joint control." Inside, the tunnel was dark, the air stale. Luro activated a small globe from her belt, filling the space with pale light. The walls here weren't glass. They were metal, old but intact. Elias leaned against one, catching his breath. "All right, talk." She set the light on the ground and faced him. "The Skarn designed me to interface with any technology. Machines obey me, even ones they didn't build. I can break them, or improve them." "Why would they want to get rid of that?" "They didn't. They wanted more control. But the process that made me made others like me think for ourselves." Elias felt a chill. "You rebelled." "We refused to be used. Most of us were destroyed. I ran." The distant hum of engines filtered into the tunnel, muffled, but moving closer. "They're sweeping the canyon," Elias said. "They won't find us yet, but we must keep moving." Elias frowned. "If you can shut down their tech, why not just fry every ship they've got?" She looked away. "Because the more I use my power, the more it changes me." "How?" She didn't answer, and that scared him more than if she had. The tunnel curved upward, ending in a grated hatch. Luro shoved it open, and they stepped out into blinding light. The glass waste stretched ahead, a jagged ocean of crystal spires and fractured mirrors, glinting under the copper sky. Lightning flickered in the distance, crawling through the clouds. Elias shaded his eyes. "Well, this looks friendly." They won't cross it, Luro said. Yeah, because it's insane. They stepped onto the glass, the surface slick and treacherous. Each step made a faint chime, the sound echoing like tiny bells. Halfway across the first ridge, a shadow moved in the haze. Elias stopped. Tell me that's not a scarn. It's not, Luro said, but her hand went to her weapon. The shadow resolved into something insect-like, long and low, with too many legs. Its body shimmered as if made of the same crystal as the ground. It stopped, tilting its head unnaturally, then began to crawl toward them. Luro, Elias said. Why's it looking at me like lunch? Because it is. Lightning crackled overhead, and the creature lunged. The crystal beast's legs scraped the glass with a sound like knives on stone. Its eyes were clusters of glowing amber, each one reflecting Elias and Luro in miniature. Elias swung the coil gun up and fired. The shot rang like a bell as it hit the beast's carapace, sending a ripple through its crystalline shell, but it didn't slow. It's armored, Elias shouted. Nothing here is unarmored, Luro replied, stepping in front of him. The beast lunged again, jaws splitting into 4 serrated plates. Elias dove to the side, boots sliding on the slick glass. The thing hit where he'd been, cracking the surface in a spiderweb pattern. Luro moved faster than he'd ever seen. She planted a hand on the beast back, and the blue light surged from under her mask, racing into the creature's body. The beast froze, every limb locking in place. The blue light spread through its crystal shell like water in ice. Then the screaming began. It wasn't a sound Elias could place, half mechanical, half alive, vibrating the air until his teeth hurt. The beast's body pulsed with Luro's light, brighter, hotter, until thin cracks began to appear along its legs. Luro, Elias called, that's enough. She didn't move. Her fingers dug into the beast, back, the light intensifying until it was blinding. The cracks spread, glowing at the edges. A sharp, sweet smell hit the air, burning crystal, maybe even bone beneath it. The creature's movements had stopped entirely, but the screaming kept going, as if the sound itself was trapped inside. Elias stepped forward and grabbed her shoulder. You're killing it. Her head turned slightly toward him, but he couldn't see her expression through the mask. You don't have to, he said. It's down, it's not. The beast shattered. Its body came apart in a single violent burst, shards of crystal spraying in all directions. The impact knocked Elias backward, glass cutting into his hands as he hit the ground. When he looked up, Luro was standing in the center of a smoking crater, the light fatting from her skin as the shards tinkled down around her. She swayed slightly. Luro. Her voice was quieter than usual. That's why I don't use it often. Elias got to his feet. Because it's dangerous. Because every time I do, I feel less me. He studied her, the way her breathing was deeper, her stance more rigid, like she was holding something back. What happens if you use it too much? She didn't look at him. I stopped caring what I do with it. The wind carried a new sound, then distant but steady. Elias turned and saw dark shapes moving through the copper haze at the edge of the wastes. Grav skiffs. They crossed in, he said. I thought they wouldn't follow. They shouldn't, Luro replied, which means, she trailed off. They want you bad enough to risk it. Yes, and they brought something with them. Lightning lit the horizon for an instant, and Elias saw it. Not a skiff, not even a normal Scarn machine. It was tall, spindly, and walked like an insect, each step sinking slightly into the glass before it rose again. At its center was a pulsing green core that lit the haze around it. Luro's voice was almost a whisper. They sent a binder. What's a binder? Elias asked. Her answer was immediate. The only thing that can hold me. The machine's core flared, and a low, thrumming hum began to pulse across the wastes, making the glass beneath their feet vibrate. Luro flinched. Elias, she said, we run now or I don't run at all. The hum from the binder machine pulsed through the glass wastes, each wave dragging at Luro like invisible chains. She stumbled, one knee hitting the slick glass. Elias caught her under the arm. Come on. I can't, it's locking into me. Then I'll break it. The skiffs drew closer, their searchlights cutting pale cones through the copper haze. The binder's long limbs carried it forward with eerie precision, each step bringing the green core closer. Around it, arcs of static leapt from crystal spire to crystal spire, turning the wastes into a cage of light. Ilias' mind raced. He couldn't outshoot a machine like that, but maybe he could outthink it. "Where's its weak point?" he asked. "The core," Luro said, her voice tight. "But it's shielded. I can reach it if—" she faltered. "If what?" "If you remove my mask and let me go all the way." Ilias stared at her. "You said that changes you." "It will," she said. "But if I don't, they take me alive, and then it's over." Over for her, for him, maybe for the whole damn planet. Ilias glanced at the skiffs. They were spreading out, blocking escape. The binder's hum deepened, and Luro's knees buckled. He made his choice. "All right," he said, gripping the mask's edge. "But you come back, you hear me?" "I'll try." The seals hissed, and the mask came free. Her living metal skin flared with light instantly, silver eyes locking on the binder. The hum wavered for a heartbeat, and in that heartbeat she moved. Ilias had never seen anything that fast. One moment she was beside him, the next she was sprinting across the glass, her feet sparking blue with every step. The binder reacted, limbs stabbing down to block her path, but she wove through them like water, every movement impossibly fluid. She leapt, landing on its body, hands slamming against the armor around the core. Blue light burst from her, flooding into the machine. The binder screamed, not a mechanical whine, but something deeper, older, as if it knew what was happening to it. The green core flared, then dimmed, then flared again in a struggle of colors. Ilias saw her head tilt back, the blue light in her skin shifting to a harsh white. Her fingers dug deeper into the metal. The binder's limbs thrashed wildly, smashing crystal towers to dust. The skiffs opened fire. Bolts of green plasma streaked toward her, but Ilias was already running, coilgun in hand, firing at every muzzle he could see. He took down one skiff's gunner, then another, buying her seconds. The binder's core cracked. A shockwave blasted outward, knocking Ilias off his feet. He hit the glass hard, sliding to a stop. Through the haze, he saw the binder's limbs collapse inward, the green light snuffing out entirely. Luro stood on what was left of it, her metallic skin still glowing. She stepped down slowly, each movement deliberate. When she reached him, the glow was fading, but her silver eyes were sharper, colder. "Are you still you?" he asked. She tilted her head. "Mostly." "Mostly." She glanced back at the wreckage. "I felt it, the part of me that could do more, be more, without caring who got hurt." Ilias stood, wincing at the ache in his ribs. "But you stopped." "Yes, because you asked me to come back." The skiffs were retreating now, the surviving skarn pulling away from the wastes. Without the binder, they had no way to hold her. Ilias looked toward the horizon. "Kelthar outpost is still a long walk." "Then we walk," she said, "before I change my mind." They set off across the shimmering glass, the copper sky breaking just enough for a thin beam of sunlight to cut through the haze. Behind them, the binder's corpse cooled in the wind, and somewhere beyond the horizon, the skarn were already planning their next move. Ilias glanced at her, the mask once again hiding her face. "One day, you're going to tell me the whole story." "One day," she agreed, "if you still want to protect me after." "I will," he said without hesitation. And for the first time since they'd met, she almost smiled, though the mask hid it from sight.